welcome to episode 22 of the Craft House Magic podcast. My name's Ellie and I'm coming to you from Norwich in Norfolk, and today is the 24th of August. And thank you so much for joining me if you haven't watched before, and thank you so much for coming back if you've listened to me on previous occasions. It's so nice to have such lovely comments and chatting to people about all the crafty goodness. It's lovely. So, you can find me on Instagram, Ravelry, Facebook and Twitter as Craft House Magic. I have a website called crafthhousemagic.co.uk where you can find all links to all my other sites there. And I also have an Etsy shop called Craft House Magic, so you can find lots of bags there. I'll show you some of the bags that I've made to put in the shop in the next shop update at the end of the podcast. So you can listen to that if you're interested. So I just wanted to say that we're doing two knit-alongs at the moment. One's called the Summer Sock Along, and we're knitting lots of lovely short and lacy socks on there, and you can see loads of lovely patterns that people are knitting. Lots of lovely inspiration. But I just wanted to say that make sure that they are either lace or short socks, otherwise they're not legible for prizes in the finished objects thread. So at the end of the at the end of the knit along, I'll be going through all the entries to make sure that they're all legible according to the criteria that we set at the beginning, i.e. that they're either lace or shorty socks. But most of them are, so that's lovely. And we're also doing a doodle along. Doing a doodle along, which means that we're all knitting The Doodler by Stephen West. So you're very welcome to join us. The knit along goes right till the end of October, so you have plenty of time to knit it, because I know how difficult it is sometimes to knit big shawls in only 1 or 2 months. So we've got 3 months to do it, so August, September and October. So come and join us there. I've got my doodler that I'm working on to show you a little bit later, so you can see whether you like the idea of knitting it. So we've got some knitting, we've got some sewings, including some dressmaking and some cross stitch, and I've also got a little bit of spinning today, and some confessions and a gadget as usual. So I better get on. So for finished objects, before actually, I'm going to show you a finished object that I showed you last time, just quickly. So I showed you the Wildflower Honey Socks by Ruth McKayen, and I did a test knit for Ruth, and I showed you these on the last podcast. But I just wanted to mention that her pattern will be available from today on Ravelry, so if you'd like to download it, it's available. I know that some of you asked me just to make sure that you knew when it was available so that they could get it as soon as possible because they loved it. So, first proper finished object now in the knitting section. I finished my Liguria. This is so squishy! If you could feel this, it's unbelievable. You can see how the 2-colour brioche works really well. And even though I did several sections wrong and had to re-knit them, it's actually quite a straightforward pattern. Just don't talk too much while you're knitting it like I did. So that's lovely and squishy, and it's got, I don't know if I'll be able to show you this properly, but at the top of the hat there's like a flower shape which is really lovely. So there we are, that's my Liguria hat. I'm really pleased about that. I'm not going to put it on just yet because it's way too hot. It's not really hot in the UK, but I'm really hot today. I've been running around. So when it gets a little bit colder, I might even wear it for the podcast. You never know. Right, so that's my only finished object for this, for the knitting section of this episode, I'm afraid. But I've got lots of works in progress, lots of new ones. So to start with, I've been working on a test knit, another test knit. So these are the Spellbound Socks by Naomi Buchanan. Have you noticed, Naomi, I've actually pronounced your surname correctly this time. When I heard myself actually say your surname in one of the previous episodes and I'd said it completely wrong, I was so embarrassed. But I didn't re-record. That's how terrible I am. So this is a lovely textured stitch that Naomi's designed, and it's coming along lovely so far. So thanks, Naomi, for letting me test knit your pattern. So this yarn is Mothie and the Squid, and it's in the blue raspberry colourway. And Mothie and the Squid is an Etsy shop, so you can find her yarns on there. Really lovely and squishy yarn. Really pleased with how it's knitted up so far. And I've actually popped in a lovely plain sort of colour, tonal I should say, just to complement that, and I think it goes lovely. But this is from Rainbow Cloud on Etsy. So Katia dyed these yarns, and I think it was from the Beauty and the Beast set of minis that I had. So I had a 20-gram mini in this colour, and it's a beautiful tonal. You can see I've done a bit of a loose stitch there. Don't look, I'll put my finger over it. So that actually matches fantastically with the Mothie and the Squid yarn. So they're both lovely and squishy. What I decided to do this time, because I knit really tightly on socks anyway, I decided to go up a needle size. So I normally knit my socks on 2.5mm needles, but I decided to try 2.75 because I know that my 2.5mm socks come out as the same gauge as what's normal for a 2.25mm. So I'm hoping that this will come out just a nice little bit looser and stretchier, and it does seem so far. So actually I might be tempted to go up to 2.75 for lots of future socks. But I'm really enjoying this lovely pattern. So it's a short row heel and a textured stitch. The only thing that I've changed about it so far is that I did a twisted rib instead of a plain, like a normal stitched rib that Naomi's designed. But after I'd done the Wildflower Honey socks, I didn't used to like single 1x1 rib, but after those I really like it. So I'm actually going to do more 1x1 rib on future socks. So that's my Spellbound socks, and Naomi's pattern's going to be available on the 1st of September, so anybody who's interested, it'll be available to download on the 1st of September. So we have my next work in progress. Now this is really exciting. Oh. Think Christmas, think gorgeous gingerbread, freshly baked gingerbread. Look at those. Look at that. This brown to me is actually, it's perfect for gingerbread, and it's the micro stripes, absolutely gorgeous with some speckles in there. Now this yarn was dyed by the lovely Kelly of Lay Family Yarns. I was chatting to Kelly and we decided to do a collaboration, and we thought, what can we do that's like a Christmassy theme? So we've gone for gingerbread. So this is the yarn that Kelly will be dyeing up for the collaboration, and I'm going to make some bags. So I've got an example of one of the bags, and this is the gingerbread bag. So we've got a very happy gingerbread man jumping around, and this fabric reminded me of those candy canes, so I just had to have it. So the back is plain, but you've got a gingerbread man appliqued on the front with little buttons and beads and bow on the front, and then inside Christmassy green. So we've got a lovely little swirly fabric there, absolutely gorgeous, with my normal little pocket that I have. So I'm keeping this one for me. And it's got some bells on as well. So I shall show you the cake of Kelly's lovely yarn. So this is how it looks, and you can see the little bits of gold stellina that's in there. It's more difficult to see it on camera, but it is absolutely stunning, and this is what I see as Christmas. So Kelly's dyed up some little minis to go with the sock sets in this sparkly gold stellina as well. And you can see how I've started to knit my heel flap in it, and you can see, oh, you can just see the sparkles there. And I'm going to show you how lovely Kelly's going to be packaging up these yarns. This is what it's going to look like. So there's Kelly's card, Lay Family Yarns on Etsy, and she's put these gorgeous bells. And she showed me a picture of these. I was like, oh my god! So that's absolutely gorgeous. Thank you so much, Kelly, for doing the collaboration. So if you want to get hold of the bag and yarn sets, Kelly and I will be uploading some listings in both our Etsy shops on the 1st of September at 7 o'clock in the evening, 7 PM, and it'll be English summertime. It's a bit early for Christmas, but not for me. Right, sorry about that little bit of shameless self-promotion. You know where I've got that saying from. Right, so we've got some more works in progress. Actually, I haven't cast this on just yet, but I wanted to mention it because it's to do with the summer sock along, because I hadn't got any socks on the needles for the summer sock along, and I've been dying to cast some on. It's just other things have been getting in the way. Too much crafty goodness. So the lovely Teresa, it's Teresa Shingler, had gifted me this lovely yarn which I showed you on the, I don't know if it was the last podcast maybe or the one before. And this yarn is called Teasel Blue. Now Teresa had also designed some beautiful, beautiful socks that was to go with this yarn, and the pattern's called Teasel as well. I'm going to pop a picture here. You can see how beautiful they are. So I'm going to knit those for the summer sock along. They're perfect, they're lacy, and they're short as well. So absolutely perfect. So I'll be knitting those. If you're knitting some shorty or lacy socks, come into the summer sock along thread and we can discuss lots of ideas for yarns and things and see how your knitting is coming along. It'd be lovely to see what you're up to. So that's for the summer. Oh, I was going to mention as well, Teresa had gifted us, this is the yarn that Teresa had gifted as a prize for the summer sock along. So this is the other colourway that she's dyed up as well. So you get a different sock pattern, which I will pop here. The crescent socks. Okay, right, the doodler. Oh dear, anyone think I'd had too much tea today? I've been working so hard at this doodler. I had to slow down a bit as well because the next bit would be really difficult to show you on camera. So I've done all the wedges, if you can see them. It's difficult to show this. It doesn't look quite as wiggly holding it up. I'll have to pop some pictures in as well. And I've done this cable edge, which is rather lovely. It's difficult to see because it's quite a dark yarn. But this cable is really quite fun. Although when you are knitting it, I did find that I had to sort of wedge my needles more at a shorter angle than I would normally. I'd normally knit like this, but I had to do it like this when I was doing the cables because there's so many stitches on each cable twist. But it's great fun. There we go. So I don't think I mentioned it. I can't speak. I don't think I mentioned it on the last podcast, but if you are starting the doodler, you start on this edge here. And sometimes, well, I found it a little bit difficult to decide what colour A, which part of the shawl colour A is. So colour A is the parts between the wedges here. So you start on this one, this is colour A, just so you know to start with the right colour, because I know he just says start with colour A, but you don't know where the placement of colour A is. You need to have a diagram. Some people have been saying that they have run their colour that they did for these bits in between the wedges down the side of the I-cord edge. Now this is a really good idea, however, because I'm quite a tight knitter, I was really scared that I'd end up pulling the waves in a little bit too much so that they wouldn't wave out so much. So I ended up just weaving all my ends in, which I have done, I'll show you. So they're not all dangling anymore. That's the back. I think if you've done more of a variated colour, I think it looks neater, because this on the back side doesn't look quite as pretty as the front. I suppose it never does though. But it's nice to have a nice double-sided shawl. So my shawl is about 1 metre wide, I think, so far. So it runs from my shoulder to my hand. But because I knit so tightly, it's so much smaller than some of my friends that are also knitting it. I'll pop a photo here of how my friend's shawl looked up against mine, how much smaller his was at the same point in the knitting. I don't know what wedge we were on, but we were on this, I was about a row behind him. And that's the difference between the tensions. I know that this is quite obvious, but I just thought it was fascinating. So I've now finished all these wedges, and I actually ended up with 25 grams of colour A left over. However, some people that knit quite loosely ended up having to, well, running out of the colour A before they'd finished the last repeat, so just beware of that. Make sure that you either have got an extra skein, or if you are a tighter knitter it doesn't matter so much. So as I said, I've got 25 grams left, so because I'm so tight in my knitting I had all that left, although it does come out quite a lot smaller. But I think it'll be big enough to go around my neck. I've been practicing to see how I was going to arrange it. And I think that's going to look quite nice. So the next section requires you to pick up stitches all the way round this bottom edge, and I thought that I'd show it to you before I started picking up the stitches, because it's going to be all cramped up on the cable needle just from the top, so I thought I'd give you a view of it before I'd done that. So now I can get on to picking up stitches, although I think there's going to be quite a long rows when I do this. We'll see how tedious it gets. Oh, I forgot to tell you what colourways I've been using. I have told you this on previous podcasts, but I thought I'd just remind you. I'm using Aubergine by Looking for Glass Fibre Arts, and this one is this colour. The paler blue is Life in the Long Grass, Silver Sky, and the third colour I'm going to be using for the bit around the bottom is called Storyteller. I'm really excited about using this. Really lovely tones in there. I've tried to sort of pick different colours out of here to go with the rest of the shawl, and I thought that the aubergine went quite well with these sort of pinkish speckles. So that's my doodler. And now I've got my Cozy Memories blanket. This is looking so lovely. Oh dear, this is such a pleasure, it's ridiculous. I have done a whole row since the last time I podcasted. Now this is my Fibre East row. So I'm going to go through which yarns and where I got them from. So this one is Strawberry Pavlova by made by Jude. This one is Beaker Button. I don't think there was a colourway for this one, no. It just came as a little mini with no name for the colour. So that's a little sparkly square. This one is fruit salad, I think. I will check and put it down below if I am incorrect. And that's made by Jude as well. This one is by Easy Knits. And I think they're called Wickedlets, the minis that they have. Look at those colours. Perfect. Gorgeous. And then this one is Mint Choc Chip, and made by Jude as well. And you can see a bit of a food theme going on there by the one in the middle and the two outside ones there. Absolutely gorgeous. Raspberry Pavlova. Lovely. And Mint Choc Chip. Ooh. Now this one is by Paper Stories, and this one didn't have a name either, there wasn't a label on it. And then lastly, this is my Fine Fish Yarns, and I don't think this had a name on either, but you can see the lovely little speckles. But this is a single rather than the high twist sock yarn that I've normally used. That's come up really pretty. I noticed how squishy the single ply comes out in when it's knitted up. So that's lovely. So all together I've got a square. Absolutely loving it. It's going to be too big to show on the podcast soon. I'll only be able to show little bits. So it's nice to be able to sort of have it on my knee now when I'm knitting it. Although it is a little bit warm at the moment. So that's all my works in progress for knitting. I've been doing a little bit of spinning. So last time I showed you that I'd got two bobbins, both full of fibre that I'd spun into singles, and I've actually plied them. This isn't the tidiest yarn. So this is what I've come up with. There are some fluffy bits. I believe it's quite a balanced yarn, because when I washed it, it hung straight, so I'm quite pleased about that. And it is a little bit thicker than I thought. I don't know if I've got any DK, but it's probably more like an Aran weight, I think, that I've spun up, but it's still pretty and relatively even. It just fluffs up so much when you wash it. It looks thinner to start with and it's quite thick. There we go. So I've got a skein of that. I don't know what I'm going to knit with this. Has anybody got any suggestions? A hat, I suppose. Don't know. Any suggestions? That'd be really interesting to see what you come up with. So that's my hand spun yarn. It is actually hand dyed. I'm doing a little worm now. Oh dear. I'm absolutely crazy today. So it is hand dyed, and the yarn's from an Etsy shop called Gone Woolly, and it's in the Atlantic Shallows colourway. So you can get hold of the roving or wool top, as you call it, from the Etsy shop from Gone Woolly. So that's my spinning for this time. I think it's time for a little bit of sewing. So, with the magic of technology, Barbara will appear. Ta-da! So this is my dressmaking for this week. So at the quilt show, the Festival of Quilts, that I went to last week, actually it was the week before last, I think, yeah, 2 weeks ago, I picked up a metre of this lovely stretch fabric from a shop called Fabrics Galore, and they got a cute tag card. I thought that was really lovely, and I thought, oh, this would make a lovely top. So I just went through the patterns that I'd already purchased, and I decided to pick up this pattern again. So I have made this before, so it's this view here, and it's a new look pattern, and it's 6922. So I decided to make this one. On the pattern, I think it said I needed about 1.5 meters or 1.5 yards, but I actually, because this fabric was so wide, I can't tell you exactly how wide it is, I was able to get this top easily out of 1 metre, and I had a little bit left over. This pattern's really lovely and easy. I've made it before and I found that it fitted really well, so I decided to use the same pattern, and I really like the way it's ruched at the top there. I'm not sure whether this fabric print is a little bit too much to be an all over top, but I thought I'll probably be wearing it with like a navy blue cardigan over the top anyway, which I think will look really lovely. I didn't actually match up any of the seams, which now is annoying me a little bit. I thought that it'd be too difficult, and you can see it doesn't match up at the back or on the side seams, but it's too late now to worry about any of that. So I'm really pleased about this. Instead of doing a top stitch on this stretch fabric, because it's really quite a stretchy fabric, I put the binding on by machining it to this side, folded it over to the inside, and then I hand stitched on the inside just there, just to give it a nice neat finish, because sometimes if the fabric's a bit stretchy, I find it really difficult to get the binding nice and neat around the neck. So because I hand stitched it, I know that it's going to be okay. So that's one of my first finished top, and because I was so excited about dressmaking, I decided to make another one. And I was very frugal with my fabric because I used some of this. And I will just, Barbara's to change her clothes for a moment. This is a little bit creased as I haven't actually pressed it, but this is the second pattern that I made. So this one is the New Look 6816, and it's just this version I made, the short sleeved version, and this is literally made of a front panel, a back panel, and the piece that goes around the neck, so it's so lovely and easy. Actually, there's 2 back panels, I lied. So because I had some of the other fabric left and it wouldn't really make much else, I decided to pop like one side. I tried to make this look as if I'd meant to do it by changing the binding on the back, so that I'd got the dark with the patterned and the patterned with the plain to go together, and then it's got a plain front, and I really like the way that these two materials work together. This is a navy blue fabric. Oh, sorry, it's a little bit creased there. This is actually quite a flattering design, so I'm definitely going to make this again, and it's so easy. This fabric, this navy blue, I've had in my stash since I was 16. I'm not going to talk about how long ago that was. And it's so glad to have actually used it. So yeah, I'm really pleased with that. So that's my second make. This material is still quite a stretchy material, but I'm not quite sure what you'd call it. But it doesn't matter because it fits and it's lovely. So there we go. So moving on. So next in sewing, I've got cross stitch. So I haven't done an awful lot this week, I'm afraid, but I'm really going to try and organise myself a little bit better to get a little bit more done in the next episode. So I've done the little birds on the either side of the crown and the heart that I completed in the last exercise. I completed by the last podcast. Really still enjoying all these lovely colours. They're really sort of like a vintage pinks and blues in this piece, so I'm really pleased about that. I'm still really enjoying these Q-snap frames. I find that it's just the right sort of size to grip around without causing me too much discomfort if you're sewing for a long while. And I still haven't got round to doing a material cover for it. I shall do that for the next episode, I promise you. Because this extra fabric at the back is getting on my nerves and it will tidy it away. So that's my embroidery for this episode. So now blast from the past for this week is this little handbag that I made. This is absolutely years ago. I must have made it about 10 years ago. It's made of like a little patterned cotton fabric, and I put a snap clasp and a blue fabric on the inside. I believe this was a free pattern off the internet. Now if I can find it, I will pop the link in the down bar. But that's a really cute little handbag. I think if I was going to have made it again, I would have made it in a more sturdy fabric so that I wasn't too worried about putting it on the table if you go out for a meal in like lemonade or something. But that's really cute. I really did like this pattern, and I think the pattern pieces all fitted together nicely, and the instructions were nice, so hopefully I'll be able to find that link for you. So that's my blast from the past. So this week's gadget is rather strange. So these are called hemostats, and I got them, they're by a company called Rolson, and I got them from a shop called Maplin, which sells lots of electronics equipment. And this is great for grabbing, if you want to turn something inside out that you've sewn. Say I'm making pockets, for example, for my bags, and I've sewn 2 squares together with a gap. I'll put this through the gap, grab the other side and pull it the right way around, and that is so much easier than doing it with your fingers. So I think that these are probably for electronics really, even though they look quite medical, but they're not. They're from Maplin, an electronics shop. Very useful. If I was going to buy them again, I'd try and get ones without this locking mechanism at the top, but I'm not sure where else you could get hold of them. But they're actually really, really useful if you're doing sewing. So there we go. Right. So we're on to confessions. Actually, it's not that bad. There's not that many things. So, as you know, as I mentioned before, I went to the Festival of Quilts a couple of weeks ago, and I had to purchase a few items. It was research. So I've shown these paint sticks before, but I got a couple of colours, a couple of more colours. They're Markle paint sticks. They're oil paint sticks, and these I used, excuse me, for a sheep picture that I'd done previously and shown on the podcast. So I just got some red and yellow because I didn't have many primary colours of these. They are quite expensive, so I don't buy too many all at once. So just 2 is not too bad. I think they're about £4 or £5 each, so if you're buying lots of colours it can come quite expensive. I'm interested in doing stamping and dyeing onto fabrics. Sorry about the crinkle. So I bought these. They're called palm stampers, which you go like this and stamp paints with. And I bought a set of 4. There we go. And they're from a shop called Art Van Gogh. And I think it's, well, it says on the packet they have got a web address as well, so you can find them, Art Van Gogh. I've got a couple of other bits and bobs there. I did buy some Procyon dies from Art Van Gogh as well, which was nice. So I'll be able to do some more dyeing of cotton fabrics. And I also bought this stamp from Art Van Gogh, which is little stars, which I thought was cool. So lots of stamping and printing, hopefully in the future. And then I might have bought a few pieces of fabric. This is just some of it, but I had to buy some batiks because I love batiks. So I'll just show you some of these. These are actually going to become bags for the shop, and I'm going to do some free motion quilting on them. So there's some really pretty prints there. Really lovely. I'll go through them a bit. Oh, actually, this isn't batik, but it's like a nice yellow print that I picked up. I got that one. Some more batik. So pretty. I won't be long. I've only got a few more pieces left if you're a bit bored of looking at fabric. Oh, there's some pink that I might put with that piece. Some yellow and blue. And some pink and different colours mixed together. So those are the batik ones I picked up, because I think batik is such a lovely quality fabric, because it's obviously hand dyed. I've also got a couple of Christmas fabrics as well, which I picked up from the quilts show, and these will become bags for the shop as well. Some little snowmen, and I thought this was the cutest thing ever. It's like a wintry scene, and it just, so Christmassy. Beautiful. So those are the little bits and bobs I did pick up. I bought some other boring things like interfacing as well, but I won't show you those sort of things. So it's not so bad. I haven't actually bought any yarn since the last podcast. I've banned myself from buying yarn in the whole month of August. Let's see if I can last. I've been very, very tempted by a few shops, namely Fondant Fibre and Rainbow Cloud, and Kelly as Lay Family Yarns as well. There's so many lovely yarns, but I'm not buying any until the end of the month at least. That bit could be very good. I also got a lovely, lovely package from my friend Sharon, and she sent me a gorgeous card and some beautiful little bits and bobs. I'm just going to show you a couple of things because I think they're absolutely lovely. Look at this little case that she made, tea for two, so pretty, and that's knitted with a lovely little button on the front. And then this ever so tiny little crocheted bag, which I absolutely think is gorgeous. Thank you so much, Sharon. I won't show you all the other little pieces, but they're absolutely lovely. Thank you so much. And I also did a lovely yarn swap with the lovely Julie and Elsia. I met at Fibre East a few weeks ago. It was so lovely. And we met while we were browsing all the yarns and things and discussing our confessions. They sent me a lovely, lovely hand-felted card, which I thought you might like to see. And it's got some lovely beads on there. Thank you so much, Julie. I know that you do a lot of lovely painting as well. But I won't show it just in case you didn't want me to. There's some nice chocolates in there. And then an absolute mass of yarn, which is gorgeous. I can't wait to use all those little bits and bobs. So I've also got something else interesting to show you. So my friend Jo has got some relatives in Canada, and they've sent her some of these needles. Now, I just thought they looked really strange. I'd never seen them before. So they're from a shop called the Yarn Guy, which is just there. So these are 3.5mm versions, and this is what they look like. And I just wondered whether anybody else had knitted with these before. So Jo had started knitting a little sample here, and then passed it on to me to have a little go. So you put one needle either side, you can see how they're sort of laid out, and then you knit with a third one. Now, I'd never seen these before. I had to Google this to work out what to do. So you slip the stitches onto one of the sides of the needles. Let's get untangled. And then you just use this as your needle, but it's just bent. That's the only difference. So you just knit, see, I'm very awkward doing these because I haven't done these before, well, very much, and just knit as if you were knitting with normal needles, but they're just bent. So you get to the end and then sort of straighten it. I'll fast forward me knitting a row. So there we are, I've finished knitting there. So you then move this needle so it spreads the stitches on there, and then you turn it round. So it's a little bit like working on 4 DPNs, but instead you've got 2. How crazy is that? So if anybody knows any more about this, it'd be lovely to hear what you've got to say. I'll open a Ravelry page for this episode, so if you'd like to pop in there and have a discussion about it, or just pop a comment in the comments below. So I've just got the Ask Me Anything section, and then a little update on some news that I've got to tell you all. Oh, as well as I'm going to show you a few of the bags I'm going to put in the shop on the 1st of September. So we'll start with the Ask Me Anything section first. So I've just got one question on the Ask Me Anything, and it was from the lovely Christine, and she was asking, she was explaining that she hadn't knitted shawls before and that she was interested in starting, and that she wanted some examples of what sort of shawls she could start with, some nice easy ones. And I've got 2 that I put down on my list that I could recommend to you, that I think a lot of people have knitted already, and I definitely think that it's an appropriate pattern. I've never knitted these, but they look really nicely explained and nice and relatively simple. So the first of them is the Spindrift shawl by Helen Stewart. Hello, welcome to episode 22 of the Craft House Magic podcast. My name's Ellie, and I don't know how much it was, but you could, if you actually register with Helen's website to get the newsletter, you can get the pattern for free, so that's brilliant. And I think there's some tutorials on Helen's website as well that can help you along with knitting the shawl. So I definitely recommend that. But there's another paid for pattern that I thought was lovely as well, which I've seen a few people knit, and it's called the Hitchhiker Shawl by Martina Behem. I don't know if I've pronounced that correctly. But I'll write it down below so you can actually see how to spell it. But that's a lovely sort of a smaller, I think it's knitted on the side instead. So that would be another lovely example as well. So I hope that helps you, Christine. I'll have popped some pictures in there so you can see what they're like as well. And now it's on to the next bit. So I've got some news to tell you all. Now you might all think I'm absolutely crazy. So I used to be a research scientist, and I used to work in the lab researching different things. The latest project I've been working on is working on pea crops and measuring levels of ions. But I decided that as my contract was ending last week, that I'd actually try and just have a go at working on my shop and doing the podcast and doing all the crafty things, at least till after Christmas. So I'm going to see how it goes. It might mean that I'll have to get another full-time job, but it means for a few months I get to play around and make all the lovely things. So you might think I'm a little bit crazy giving up my full-time job, but I'm sure you'll see lots more makes on the podcast from now on, so that's going to be fun. a few of you I know already because I mentioned it to a couple of close friends, so it's very exciting. Lastly, I just wanted to show you a few of the things that are going to come up in the shop. So I've already shown you the Christmas bag, the gingerbread set that me and Kelly are doing, but there's another number of other things I'm going to be putting up in the shop. So I'll have a few more of the sheep bags. I couldn't think of the word for sheep. I'll have a few more sheep bags in the shop because I know that these went absolutely out of the shop as quick as I made them. So I'll make some more of those. I've got a few of these bags that I made for the last update still in the shop with some ladybirds in, and these take about 4 skeins. I've got a few of these birdcage bags. This is a sock size bag which takes 1 to 2 skeins of yarn. It's got a little birdcage on and a birdcage on the little tag there. So that's what I had on the last episode. But I've also made some Halloween bags. Now I will have some charms on these as well, but I thought it was really cool. It's like a lace fabric. I did have some of these in the shop last year, but I've made a couple more. And these are a sort of a notions pouch size to pop all your little bits and bobs for knitting in. And I will have a little charm on the tag there. But you can see that there's like skulls, crosses, Halloween. I also had a couple of sewing related fabrics, so I've made a couple of bags with lovely sewing fabrics. I just thought that this went so well with a lovely red lining in there. There's only one each of these bags, so if you do want it, I suggest you get it as quickly as possible. This one's got a nice white lining, and that's got some cute little pictures of sewing related things on. And then I've made the biggest bags you can ever imagine. So these have got, if I can show you closely, I've free motion embroidered around the design to really highlight the bird picture. And I think that it's got a little bit creased as I've folded it up in the drawer. But it's got a flower on the back that I've also free motion stitched around, which I think is rather pretty. This pattern on this fabric was so large that I needed to make them into massive bags. Now, if I put some of the yarn, or perhaps my Cozy Memories blanket in there, just to show you what it looks like when it's full. I don't know whether you'll be able to see. This isn't even full. This has got my Cozy Memories blanket on. So this bag is for really big Cozy Memories blankets or big thick Aran jumpers and things. I just thought that it really showcased the fabric a lot nicer. And I'll have some little progress keepers on there as well to decorate it. So there we go. I've only got 2 of those in the bag. It's going to be lined with the same fabric on the inside as the outside. And they've both got some nice pockets inside as well. But then this one I did with a white lining, and actually I think this one looks quite nice with a white lining. And that's an Egyptian cotton lining, just a contrast there. So the update will be on the 1st of September at 7 o'clock. So if you fancy anything, it's in my Etsy shop. And I think that's everything for today. Thank you so much for joining me and putting up with all my shameless self-promotion. I've stolen this from Amy Beth from the Fat Squirrel. I'm sure she won't mind, as long as I reference her. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you join me again soon. I'll pop some footage of the quilt show at the end of the podcast if you're interested in seeing some of those lovely quilts. And I shall see you again next time. Bye!